Several recent conversations with friends caused me to reflect on the somewhat unique position we UUs hold in the religious world. And it's not what a lot of religious people actually want. Many people want certainty or unconditional hope, and we don't offer either, at least not on a regular basis. By certainty, I mean an affirmation of the afterlife or heaven. And by unconditional hope, I mean offering some kind of remedy for the problems of this world, which can be found in the prosperity gospel or through prayer. So, as a religion, we exist in a no man's land because we seldom offer the certainties or the unconditional comfort in life many people are looking for. In fact, we've always faced a backlash with our tendency to deny absolutes. We rebelled against creeds, which are beliefs set in theological stone. Instead, we're clear. We promote values, not creeds. And there is a difference between beliefs and values. Others may have certain beliefs that we don't accept. But the difference for me is that any belief that can't be acted upon in some way may be imaginary. You can believe in justice and act accordingly. On the other hand, you may believe in hell, but there's no tangible way that you can act upon a belief in hell, except through coercing others to share that belief. Our values are of this world, not some other world. As I edited this sermon, I was reminded that there's really nothing new here, only reminders for us all, at least for me. Even so, having beliefs that are based on ideas such as heaven or hell still have real-world consequences. So we need to remember that and actively promote our values. Today I want to explore some of the certainties or beliefs other religions promote and we question. Sadly, people will believe the unbelievable. They always have. And yet, the world keeps turning regardless of what any of us believe. The first subject I'll tackle is the idea of a divine punishment for sin. And this idea started with a conversation I had with a friend. Long ago, he was turned off by the idea of hell. What he wants is a religious experience based on hope or something positive. Actual life for him is hard, and he doesn't want any more negativity. What he's looking for is to feel good. Sometimes we promote that, but not always. So where did all this negativity come from? Before Christianity became the state religion of the Roman Empire, Christians were constantly embarrassing the Romans because Christians were good to everyone, always taking care of the sick and the hungry, something the empire wasn't willing to do. After Christianity became the state religion, the focus for Christians gradually changed, primarily due to church teachings. The church began teaching that getting into heaven required good works and the forgiveness of sins. The church fostered a fear of hell, and subsequently their followers feared for their souls. Altruism, practiced by early Christians, was replaced by the church with guilt. The church then profited off of all that guilt by letting their followers purchase salvation through the sale of indulgences or get out of hell free cards, except they weren't free. In reality, the Catholic Church built many buildings like the Sistine Chapel off the sale of indulgences. Martin Luther rebelled against that practice, claiming the church was taking advantage of the poor. Luther then claimed the real way to get into heaven was through faith, but he came to that belief in a rather curious way. First, Luther attempted to be perfectly good. In fact, he was obsessed about being good, but he always failed. So, he went in the other direction, saying we had to be perfectly faithful. When I learned of Luther's obsession with trying to be perfectly good, my first thought was that he must have had obsessive-compulsive disorder. It turns out several books have been written about Luther's obsessive-compulsive tendencies. According to reports, Martin Luther suffered from the specific type of OCD called scrupulosity OCD, where one's obsessions largely surround their highest values. He attended confession excessively to counteract his obsessions. At times, Luther claimed there was a battle between God and the devil with his intrusive thoughts, and he is quoted as saying, "When the devil introduces such perverse thoughts into our heads against our will, God wishes us to occupy us so that we don't get lazy, but fight against the perverse thoughts and pray." Soon, the need to be saved took over in the Protestant world, and Luther's OCD-inspired theological beliefs morphed into a vast theological competition among the various Protestant churches to define the proper ways to be faithful and thus saved. Our Universalist ancestors rejected all of those theologies and claimed everyone was saved. And here's where a second conversation about salvation somewhat shocked me. This friend had no idea about all the various salvation theologies proclaimed by the many different Protestant churches. My takeaway from that conversation and many others is that today many Protestants don't really care about salvation one way or the other. They belong to their various respective Protestant churches because they grew up in them. On the other hand, many Protestants are die-hard, "Have you been saved?" Christians, and they are quick to point an accusing finger at those of us who don't claim to be saved. I do, however, agree with Luther on one specific thing. None of us will ever be perfectly good. The need to be perfect in order to get into heaven, whether with good works or through some kind of faith, was a fiction created by the Catholic Church. It was made up. Recently, I realized something rather ironic. At least it was to me. The Ten Commandments were supposedly written in stone by God. Those commandments are the rules God gave us for living this life in community with each other. Don't lie, respect the property of others, honor your parents, and don't kill are a few of the commandments. The same people who believe this list came directly from God and that they should be posted in our schools also believe in the need for salvation. Ironically, God, who carved the Ten Commandments in stone, didn't mention the need for salvation at all. If salvation were really that important, I believe God would have written it down when he had the chance. But for the God of the Old Testament, living successfully in community with each other was more important than some fabricated idea called salvation. Living in community, peacefully, with others is often challenging. So maybe we should promote posting the Ten Commandments in school, with the caveat that salvation is not required. We UUs believe we need to do the right thing because it's the right thing to do, not because of some divine commandment. Unfortunately, it's not always clear what the right thing to do actually is, because life often throws us curveballs and we can't quite hit them. Trying to do the right thing, whatever that may be, is also a part of the no man's land we actually live in. But doing the right thing doesn't assure us an eternal future. Moving on, religious leaders have often used their followers for less than altruistic reasons, rather than actually helping them deal with life as it is. They did this by disconnecting them from actual lived reality. And that brings me to the second subject this morning, that we are special creations of God and above the realities of life. Father Knows Best was a television show many of you might remember. It was about a loving and wise father. In my case, however, life was more of a mother knows best situation. My mother was smart, wise, and practical. She was a high school science teacher, so she was educated. But even educated people can be wrong, especially when they accept the myths they've been taught. I remember one specific conversation with my mother when I had to bite my tongue. She was wrong, and I wasn't going to convince her otherwise. I don't remember what led up to her proclamation, but I said, "We're just animals." She emphatically replied, "We are not animals." I knew better than to argue, but she was wrong. We are animals, like it or not. And that's one challenge our religious community faces, balancing the supposed truths we've been told by religious authority figures against the actual realities of life. I personally lost a relationship with a dear friend when I challenged the myth of virgin births and bodily resurrections. I'm saddened to this day over that loss. We tread on sacred ground when we refute certain myths others hold dear. So be careful. Another disconcerting conversation with my mother was when her health began to fail late in life. She asked me, "Why is this happening to me?" With regard to both conversations, Christianity has been telling us for ages that we were made in God's image. And this somehow implies we are special creations. But the reality is we're all parts of the interdependent web of life, and we all come with expiration dates. That's not being cold or callous, that's just reality. On the other hand, life itself is an absolutely incredible event. In the wider universe, life is obviously rare, or we see other evidence of it, but we haven't. And something even more astounding, possibly only found in our species, is a conscious awareness of our place in the universe. Somehow, each one of us won the molecular lottery. Our collection of atoms came together because of some unexplained phenomena and gave us the wonderful gift of life, along with the ability to understand our place in the universe. These are gifts like no other. Finite gifts, yes, but extremely rare and precious gifts nonetheless. Our challenge is to not take life and consciousness for granted and appreciate them. We are a finite life form, no more sacred or special than any other life form, but with a unique ability to appreciate all of existence. Once again, let's not take life and consciousness for granted, and above all, let's not assume we are divinely special and thus above it all. And I believe we must promote the reality that we are all parts of this world and not some imagined world to come. The final subject I'll tackle relates to prayer and divine intervention. While many of us believe in the power of prayer, few of us believe in divine intervention associated with it. Earlier, I mentioned one belief about divine intervention when I referenced the prosperity gospel. The Lakewood Church is a good example. Lakewood is one of the most popular churches in Houston, with one of the largest congregations in the country. Some people who attend seem to believe that they can manifest a more successful life through the church's teachings. Constantly worrying is unproductive, and negativity impacts our bodies. So I firmly believe in the power of positive thinking. But simply thinking positive thoughts won't manifest prosperity. Positive thoughts must be aligned with actions to accomplish that. But even that won't assure prosperity. Prayer is also misused when people rely on it as opposed to proven realities such as medical treatments. It's sad when someone will blindly accept anecdotal evidence of prayer-based miracles and yet employ willful ignorance with regard to well-researched and documented medical science. Oddly, they believe that prayer delivers miracles, but not when those miracles show up in the form of brilliant medical minds, innovative medical treatments, highly skilled surgeons, or even simple devices like seat belts that minimize the need for medical treatments in the first place. The effectiveness of reality-based ingenuity is somehow lacking in comparison to prayer and imagined miracles. I actually prayed to God for years to take away the awful curse that I believed my homosexuality was. Those prayers were finally answered, but not in the way I imagined, and probably not by a God. Prayer and fear led me to a college psychotherapist, and she convinced me that it wasn't a deviant behavior, just an alternative way of being. And I accepted that fact, and the awful curse vanished. Someone in my community helped me see my truth. That's what we do for others. We help in times of crisis. So I'm very skeptical when someone offers prayers for cures to imagined problems, which are often societal prejudices. I simply don't believe in divine intervention because I've seen no evidence exists as an outcome of prayer. I do, however, believe the idea of prayer has been corrupted by authority figures for their own less than altruistic purposes. But if something has been corrupted, that means at some point it probably had some value. As a religious community, it seems many UUs struggle with the concept of prayer. Unfortunately, I believe they've thrown the baby out with the dirty bathwater. Prayer, meditation, contemplation, and hope, according to our dear friend here, are different words describing the process of slowing down our thoughts and paying attention to our lives and what's really going on in our lives. When we slow down and pay attention, we begin to allow the reality going on all around us to seep inside, and we're able to make more conscious and thoughtful decisions. One way to slow down is to meditate. Buddhist Pema Chodron says the following in one of her books: "We don't sit in meditation to become good meditators. We meditate so that we will be more awake in our lives." Meditation helps us get in touch with our lived realities. Prayer can do the same thing, as do the other forms of contemplation. So prayer or meditation, or whatever you want to call it, has value. Even so, some people are quick to say that they find that connection out in nature. And that's fine, whatever works. Author Mirabel Starr says, "There is only one holy book, the sacred manuscript of nature, and that everything you need to know is written there. When you are walking in the woods, or sitting on a beach, exploring rock formations in the high desert, or catching the trail of a meteor in the night sky, sometimes you glimpse the perfect order of creation. In those fleeting moments, nature becomes a clear window through which you can perceive things as they are, exquisitely arranged, breathtakingly lovely, and you cannot help but recognize yourself as a part of that luminous tapestry." Prayer, meditation, communing with nature are all ways to connect with the tapestry of our lives. That tapestry is another no man's land, because it's different for each one of us and difficult to communicate to others. We don't believe that prayer is a way to manipulate the universe, but it is a way to better understand the universe where we live. So another challenge for our UU religious community is to remember the authentic purpose behind prayer and meditation and all the other forms of self-reflection, without defaulting to other contrived purposes. In conclusion, as a religious community, we don't offer certainties or unrealistic hope to people who are looking for some sort of magic to soothe their existential woes. Instead, our religious community reminds us of the values we believe in, and that it is our responsibility to help those values manifest in the beloved community of life all around us. Amen and namaste.